Hi, Moms Making Six Figures. I'm really excited to share this episode with you. My friend Nieves is here talking about the landscape of jobs right now. She's a talent acquisition specialist, and she's been doing this for a really long time. I think for those of you that are navigating a career change or maybe in a position that is potentially going away. This could be a really fantastic episode for you. Will learn a lot. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Moms Making Six Figures podcast, where it's all about real women, real stories, real inspiration. And now your host and creator of Moms Making Six Figures, Heidi Bartolotta.
Nieves, thank you for flying up here to do this with me. I'm excited about this for a lot of reasons. I'm excited about talking about you and your journey and your story, but I also think that it's very, very timely given everything that's going on, and I know we're going to touch on that. So will you start out by just giving us a little bit of your background and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm in talent acquisition. I started off in HR, supporting two senior HR professionals at a large media company on the East Coast, rather, and they were in HR, and I thought that I wanted to be in HR. I knew that I liked the professionalism of it and a lot of complex problems, and that was really appealing to me. But one of them said, "I think you're actually more of a recruiter and more talent acquisition," and I did not like that. It was almost offended by it, where I'm not going and acquiring talent. I'm retaining that talent. I am HR. But after some time, I left that company to go work for a contract position in talent acquisition, and I've been in that ever since. I just really have enjoyed acquiring that talent and finding the right people and working with all different personalities on a number of roles, and it's just been really great.
So tell us some of the companies that you've worked for.
Yeah, so I started off working for Discovery. Back in the day, my first real professional gig was actually with Sony Music in New York, but I was an executive assistant there. And then I moved into Discovery when I moved to Maryland. And then from there, I've moved all around. Most recently, I was with Tinder. I'm with UCLA now. So yeah, I've been all over the place. Media companies, creative companies. I've recruited sales folks, all up and down.
So if you were to explain to someone that doesn't really understand talent acquisition or recruitment, give us just a snippet of what that description would be. And I know it's vast. I know it can really span abroad, but...
Yeah. So my responsibility is working with hiring leaders within the organization and vast companies, everything from marketing to sales to whatever it might be. And then my responsibility is working with them to figure out what they need to build their team and make it the strongest team possible. So we're really going out and acquiring that talent. More often than not, it's sourcing. So it's not always folks that apply to the position. We're finding folks that aren't actively engaged in looking, and that's our responsibility to get them hooked and interested.
So let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing right now, what you're seeing in the industry, what you're seeing across the nation, because you really do acquire talent from East Coast to West Coast. So talk a little bit about that for those that don't see it the way that you do. You have a really unique perspective.
Yeah, I think it's hitting everybody at this point, honestly. I think there's a huge job shortage. There's a lot of conversation going on around new jobs being built, and a lot of that's blue collar. So where I'm sitting and the type of work that I do and the type of folks that I recruit, they're more white collar individuals. So anything from, especially in the tech business and the tech market, that has been significantly impacted by a lot of this instability in the economy, and people are resistant to grow and just being super conservative with all of their finances and things of that nature. And because of that, it's left a vast market. It's a good thing from a recruiting perspective because it's a lot of really rich talent and a lot of incredible professionals, but it's not great from the employee perspective, where you're up against folks that are maybe more senior than you, willing to take that step down, and these companies, that's more attractive to them. And so we're seeing a lot of that. The job market there's a lot of coastally, I'll talk coastally, like within the East Coast and the West Coast, there's a lot of tech hubs, and you'll see a lot of unemployment in those areas. It's just really challenging, a saturated market for individuals looking for work. And I know, being in talent acquisition myself, that tends to be the first industry that's kind of like cut. Okay, we're not going to be hiring anymore. Let's get rid of these people on payroll who are responsible for acquiring that talent. We're not acquiring anymore. And so I know some recruiters that have been out of work for a year or 2 years at this point, just trying to find their next gig. And it's really a tough market right now.
So you mentioned that you're seeing a lot of requirement in blue collar. Just talk about that in terms of you. Does it make you look at acquiring differently? Does it make you look at your potential job shift? Because I know one of the things that you and I have talked about is you are sitting in a position, you're very blessed because you're very talented, but the industry is the industry, right?
Yeah.
How are you navigating that?
Yeah, so I just, I've had thoughts about this, right? I'm supporting my son, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm providing a life for him. And because of that, it's not just about me making sure I have a roof over my head. It's making sure I'm providing the best life I can for him. And so for me, stability comes along with that, is finding stability. And I have to take a look at other opportunities sometimes. And I just the other day thought I could be a waste collector. I could collect. I could drive around and do that, right? Like, what are they going to tell me? I'm overqualified, or underqualified?
As someone that knows you, that's so funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's stability there, right? Like, they're always going to need somebody to pick up the trash. You're always going to need that to happen. And so when it comes to finding stability, I think, I've talked with a number of folks. I had a conversation recently with a husband of somebody that I used to work with, and I told him, I said, look at the blue collar jobs. Like, that's where the stability is. That's where, getting in that. He's early in his career trying to sort things out. And I said, look at that. That's absolutely a possibility for you and something that you might want to really seriously consider, because that stability is there a lot more than it might be in some other industries right now.
And are you seeing AI impact yet?
Yeah, I mean, I use AI in part of what I'm doing currently. I'll pull, get some questions, and I'll use it to formulate some things that used to take a long time for me. And I do think that AI plays a role in a lot of what we're doing. There's a lot of concern, for sure, from a number of individuals, like, how is AI? When you look at recruiting, a lot of times people boil it down to, you're looking at a resume and picking the most qualified resume. There's a lot more that goes into it. But in that capacity, sure, AI could take my place if that's really, truly all you need recruiting for, is looking at a resume and floating the top, 20 resumes to you for consideration. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. And again, going back to the waste collection, you got to think about, is AI, I mean, maybe AI could do that at some point, so I would be out of a job, but, you've got to think about long-term and that stability there, and AI certainly plays a role in instability.
What about the positions that you're filling? Are you seeing AI come in and change the way that those roles are functioning? Because you're filling some pretty high-level positions right now, so...
Yeah, I think it's more about how people are using AI. It's not necessarily at a point where AI is coming in and doing the work, but it's how is this individual leveraging AI to complete their work and to be successful. I think that's a delicate balance that we're working through right now, is both embracing it and understanding this is something that we need to do, but also protecting our jobs and finding a way to elevate what AI is able to do.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I listened to a podcast, I might have sent it to you, where they were talking about the power of using AI to accelerate how we do our profession and allowing us to focus on the things that we really love and are really good at, and using AI to maybe kind of fill some of the gaps and things that are more of the mundane and monotonous pieces. And I thought, it's an interesting way to look at it, especially for, white collar.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, you have always done some things on the side that always complement what you do for your primary position. Yeah. And one of those things recently, you've been doing a lot of coaching with people that are looking at making transitions and looking at different types of careers. So talk a little bit about maybe what those conversations have sounded like, because I'm sure that there's some people listening that could really benefit.
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of interview prep. I think there's a ton of professionals that maybe have been in their job for a certain period of time and haven't had to interview, or have fallen into, the market is on a downspin right now, quite frankly. And so prior, maybe 5 years ago, it was in a different place. So you didn't have to be as critical of an interviewer. You didn't have to have really sharp skills. And so I work with a lot of professionals in that space and trying to help them prepare for interviews, make sure they have the questions and an idea of how they're going to approach those questions and how they're going to answer them. I also work to help improve their resume, make sure it's highlighting the things that are important. As a recruiter, I know what we're looking for, and I know sometimes numbers are left off of resumes, right? Like, did it have a monetary impact? Did it have, what type of impact were you having? Let's talk about that impact and make sure it's highlighted on that resume, because a lot of times they'll say it had an impact, but not highlighting specifically. So I work with a lot of professionals in that space, but and then also trying to figure out how to pivot your career, right? You've been doing this thing for so long, and now this thing is really competitive, and maybe you need to take a look at some other things and talking with them a little bit about other opportunities and ways that they might be able to explore careers outside of what they might have thought traditionally was going to be their path.
Mm-hmm. Give me a success story in that.
Yeah, so I had an individual that I worked with at Tinder, and she and I connected, and she had said that she was looking for an opportunity at Disney, and it was really exciting for her. It was one of those like dream job type of scenarios, and we talked through. We talked about, we did some coaching around her interview. How did that, she had at this point had already gone through 1 or 2 rounds of interviews. How was that received? How did you answer this question? She had some notes on, I don't really know, like when I asked, answer this question, I didn't get the warm fuzzies, so I don't know. And so I was able to listen and understand why it might not have been getting the warm fuzzies and help course correct. And ultimately she got the offer and was really excited. I also try to, with my folks that I'm helping, also work on offer negotiation. So trying to make sure you're not leaving money on the table, but approaching that can be a really delicate conversation. And how do I say, I'm really grateful for this opportunity, but also can you throw in an extra 10K, right? Or,
right.
Trying to navigate how you approach that. So those are some pieces, and that one was a particularly exciting one because, again, that was like a dream job for her, and it's super exciting for her.
That's wonderful. So let's go back to motherhood, because we haven't really gone into that side of it. So you've always had a very competitive career, and you have a son who is a
Just
highlight.
turned 4, yeah.
Highlight. How have you navigated that?
It's been tough. So when I got pregnant with my son, my husband and I had been trying for a very long time. It was very, very difficult. He is a true blessing among blessings. He's the best thing. But when I found out I was pregnant was right when COVID was starting. It was a month before everything started shutting down and people started to get nervous. I was very fortunate where I was laid off. They gave me a good runway in terms of severance and what I was getting at that point, and I was able to identify another job pretty quickly that I had moved into and was ready. My first week, I went into the office on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They said, all right, everybody's working from home now. Take your computers home. And then that following week, I was let go. It was COVID, they didn't know what was going on. So for me, from like a professional standpoint, it's been tumultuous to be a mom and to try to figure out, where am I going to get my job? What's going to happen? How's this going to work? And then there was the balance, right? The balance of being a mom and making sure I'm showing up appropriately for him and being the best that I can for him, but also advocating for myself. I'm a professional. I really enjoy what I do. I like working. And so there's that balance between those two worlds that was really difficult to navigate.
You said something to me about having a conversation with your son about being a better mom. And I loved the verbiage, because you said all of us can be better at the things that we do in our lives. And I know I can be a better mom. So really getting him to talk to you. And one of the things that he said was, I don't like it when you're on your computer. So I think as moms, working moms, professional moms that have a lot on our shoulders, that can almost be like a twist in the heart. But the way that you talked about navigating it, I think just showed me what I already knew about you, but will you just talk a little bit about the way that you've decided to navigate that?
Yeah, so we went camping. To recap, we went camping a couple weeks ago, and I try to do check-ins and just say, how can I be a better mom? How can I show up a little bit better? And to your point, he said, you're a great mom. I love you. You're the best. And I was like, yeah, well, there's things that mommy can work on. So help me figure this out. And one of the things that he mentioned was that he doesn't like when I'm on my computer when he comes home from school. And I work remotely, and I have a thing in my mind where I don't want him at school more than, I don't want him to be at school 9 to 5, right, at the same time that I'm there. So I try to pick him up a little bit earlier and drop him off a little bit later. So get some work done in the morning, drop him off, pick him up and try to finish up some work in the afternoon. But one of the things that he mentioned was, as you said, I don't like when you're on your computer. I want you to come play with me.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's 4.
He's 4.
Of course he wants you to come play with him.
Of course. And I would love to be playing with him versus on the computer,
Right.
of course. So I've thought a little bit about how I want to do that. And it might be a matter of he is staying at school half an hour later so that I can finish up my tasks. Or maybe it's something where I shut the computer down, go pick him up, and then later on, once he goes to bed, kind of finish some of those tasks. But it is important for me to hear that he wants to spend more time with me, and I'm not showing up in that capacity, even though he thinks I'm the best and all of these kinds of things. There are things that I can do to be better, and I want to make sure that he knows that I'm listening to him.
Mm-hmm. I think the listening is the most, and I just think it's such a tight balance for working moms.
Yeah.
Because you're held to a standard. I know a lot of women hold themselves even to a higher standard, to be honest, right? But to be able to navigate that relationship and still perform the way you want to perform. So any other mom tips for those working moms out there?
Oh man, I remember, so one of the interviews that I had gone on actually when I was at Tinder, and I think there was an article or something about this floating around, but I had interviewed, and when I was going through COVID and interviewing everywhere and not getting anything, I distinctly remember there was a time where my son woke up from his nap. I would try to schedule them during nap times because he was much younger. He was like 10, 12 months at that point, so he was taking a couple naps throughout the day, and I said, okay, great, I'm going to schedule it during this time. And I had an interview, and he was crying. He was waking up from his nap and he was crying. And I kind of was like, oh, I'll get this in a second. He's fine. Like I could look at the monitor. He wasn't hurt. He was just like, he wanted me. And I was like, oh, just a minute. And I finished my interview. And when I went in, he was very upset. And I felt absolutely terrible about that. And I said, I made that promise to him, never again am I going to do this. I promise I won't. And so I got this interview with Tinder, and I was very excited about it. It was an incredible opportunity. And it happened again. He was crying in the middle of an interview. And I had that moment where I said, no, I made this promise to him. And I told the interviewer, I said, I'm so sorry. I need to step away for 2 minutes. I will be right back. Turned the camera off, turned it on mute, went in, talked to my son for a few minutes, calmed him down, he went back to sleep, gave him some toys to play with, and it was fine. I was able to finish the interview. And when I came back, I remember saying something like, I'm so sorry. And the interviewer was so understanding and very, very kind in that space. And so it was important to me. It was almost a reiteration of wherever I go, my family comes first. And if that means during the interview, I'm going to have to step away, I'm not going to not be true to that. So it was important to me to be true to that in that moment. And it ended up being a really incredible opportunity with incredible people that I had a chance to work with. And they did, they walked the walk as well, right? It wasn't just about like, oh, work-life balance. I was in an interview where I had to step away for probably a solid 4 minutes, which from the other side, it's not always great, but it does go to show the culture of the company. And I think that's really important to consider as a mom as well.
It's interesting. I think COVID changed so many things in that regard because our lives completely merged behind a Zoom screen. Yeah. It taught us a lot. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the space that a lot of people are probably in today, which is looking to navigate new careers, different careers, shifting careers. You have a lot of years behind you in this. And what kinds of, action points could you give someone, or what kind of advice could you give someone coming out of this, something that they can apply to the situation that they're in?
Yeah, so I'll say a couple things. So one is your resume. Make sure that you have actionable things. Take some time and look at the job description. I think I see far too often people are like, the title matches, great, apply, apply. I know it takes a little bit more time, but try to tailor, see what they're looking for. Are they asking for, experience managing a budget of some amount? Make sure that that's included in your resume, because as a recruiter, I know they want a budget of 100 million. I'm going to be looking to see if there's a budget of 100 million on the resume, and you're much more likely for me to reach out if it matches, right, than if it doesn't. So take a look at your resume. I know it might take a little bit more time to tailor it to each job, but it pays off in the end. The other thing I'll say is, historically, I've always told people, go try to find the recruiter, try to find the person that is recruiting for the job, make a connection, tell them how excited you are, explain, outline in a couple bullets why you're a fit for the role. It's not working anymore. It's just not. We're inundated with that. Everybody is doing that same exact thing. So one thing that I found to be sort of an alternate to that is finding somebody that you'd work with, right? So if you're applying for a job in product marketing, maybe finding another marketer on that team, somebody that maybe would be adjacent to you, that has been at the organization for a couple of years, and ask them. This can't just be a, hey, I'm looking for this job, can you put me up for it? It's got to be a, hey, I'm really interested in this job. I'd love to hear about, you've been there for 4 years. What has your experience been? What do you like? What are some things that let's talk about this, and to try to establish a relationship in some space. And then you can say, if you wouldn't mind, or do you have anybody that I can talk to, kind of thing. That's going to go a little bit further than reaching out to the recruiter. It still a lot of times falls on deaf ears. I talked to somebody recently who shared that they're getting like 15 to 20 outreaches, cold outreaches per week, because they work at a very large company, and they're getting these outreaches per week, and I have nothing to do with it. People are just blindly connecting, and so that's something you want to be careful about, but making it a meaningful connection. And then, outside of that, just start thinking about how your skills might be applicable in other areas. Me personally, a lot of what I'm doing in my current role lends a little bit project manager. So maybe now I can start taking a look at some talent project management roles. There's a role that I recently applied to that is within project management, but it's talent acquisition. I have a lot of experience in talent acquisition, but in my most recent position, I've had an opportunity to be more involved from the project management side. And so trying to find ways to have your resume be applicable in that space, and seeing some adjacent spaces, and ways that you might be able to leverage some of that experience for other opportunities is going to be really important. And then reach out to a coach. Reach out to somebody who might be able to help you with some of those fine-tuning, to help get you through the interview process, to help refine your resume and your LinkedIn or your portfolio if you're creative. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you find yourself, because I know you do a lot of coaching on this, so do you find yourself helping people to look at other types of positions that might,
Yeah, sure. I think that's, especially when it comes to these, like we're calling white collar roles, right? There's a lot of adjacent things that you can move into within white collar, or maybe you're taking a look and you've been doing a sales job or something kind of entry-ish level. Maybe it's time to take a look at a blue collar job. Let's talk about what that training might look like and where your life could be different in a year by doing that versus where you are if you continue your down this path. Let's talk through that. Let's walk it all the way through and see what is that best option for you. So really trying to keep horizons and expand the mind to think about things that you might not otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I always ask my guests is, do you remember when you hit 6 figures, and did you have emotion around it?
Yes, I remember very clearly when I hit 6 figures, because they wanted to put me right under the 6-figure mark. So it was like a 90, 98, 6 kind of thing. And I remember the conversation I had with my boss at the time. I had just come back from a trip in New York, visiting the headquarters for the company with the chief financial officer. And I remember saying, this is really disappointing that I've done all of that and you're not feeling like I'm worth that extra $2,000 or $3,000 to get me into that 6-figure mark. And I tend to get, when I'm anxious or nervous or gearing up for a conversation, I tend to get a little bit shaky. My voice will shake, my body physically shakes, I get very cold. But I remember in that moment, I wasn't, because I was so clearly, I knew what I was worth, and I was very disappointed that this was something that they weren't even They didn't think about it. I mean, come on. And I remember my boss came back and got me to the six-figure mark. And there was a comment about how he was kind of proud of me. Like, I'm glad you came and fought for that. And it changed my paradigm on negotiation in general. I never had negotiated a job offer before then. But as a recruiter, I know that more often than not, there's money left on the table. And sometimes it's a matter of asking for it. It literally is just asking for it. And so it's important on how you ask for it. But I'm an advocate for making sure you're asking for it. And unless you're getting something crazy that's like so much more than what you're making, you don't want to be greedy. But, you know, there's a way. And it was definitely a shift for me that anything is negotiable. And it's important to ask for that.
Nice. Okay, books and podcasts. Are there books, podcasts you would recommend?
Man, for this,
For this.
I think professionally, I spend so much time on LinkedIn in it all that when I do my personal, like right now I'm working through the biography of the lead singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is an insane story. I'm working through that right now. And then from a podcast perspective, I don't think I have anything that's, you know, obviously we've talked about the Huberman podcast. It's really interesting to me. I tend to lean towards checking out. So when I'm doing some of those entertainment pieces, I'm listening to pop culture stuff and those things that really are not enriching my professionalism. It's really not, but it's because I spend so much time minding my P's and Q's and on it that it's like when I'm listening or I'm reading, I'm reaching for the stuff that's polar opposite. So I don't know that I necessarily have.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
I know you live on LinkedIn. So is there anyone, any group on LinkedIn that you would say just provides a tremendous amount of value?
So her name's JD. She is a career coach and she has a whole business of this. She shares a lot of like 1 and 3 minute videos that are very, very impactful, have a lot of information. And as a TA professional, have shifted the way I think about things sometimes of, oh wait, that's actually a really great idea, and things that I'm not always able to put a word to or terminology to, but she's been really interesting for me to just follow and watch and learn from her as a job seeker. It isn't necessarily as a TA professional, but as a job seeker and somebody who sits on the other side, on both sides of it. It's been really interesting for me.
We'll have to put that one in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, how about as a mom?
Oh, as a mom, I don't know.
I have a book right now.
So,
Something that
A Little Lion. So there's an artist that we like. I think I shared with you Brandon Lake, who is a Christian musician that we really enjoy. He and his wife wrote a book about finding your voice and having a roar and using it for important things. And he really, really enjoys that one. There's actually a part in it where most books, you turn the page this way. You got to turn it. You got to, what is it? Portrait it instead of landscape. It's portrait mode, right? Like you got to turn it this way. And it's a really beautiful book, and it has a really great story, and it's a really great message. And I think that's important for me to make sure that what I'm feeding him, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically feeding him things, that it's things that are going to nourish and enhance him. So, yeah.
Any question that I didn't ask?
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
Okay, so I want you to wrap up I want you to pitch yourself. I know this is super uncomfortable for you, like really, really uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
But I know the kind of work that you do
Yeah.
and what you pour into people.
Yeah.
So you are doing something on the side that you really have passion in.
Yeah.
So
So I love helping people look at their career a little bit differently. I'm that other lens, right? So you're looking at it from what you've done, and I get to come in and look at it from another lens, which is from a TA professional, but also from everything I've ever recruited for, and seeing how your skills might fit into something that maybe isn't, it's not necessarily fitting a square peg through a round hole or what have you. It is just about how you can apply those skills in a different space and how you can go about getting into that and pivoting your career. I really enjoy that. It's part of the reason I got into talent acquisition was the puzzle piece of it all, right? And personalities and skill sets and all of these things, and finding the right one for the team. And so I look at this as another puzzle. So I really enjoy helping people look at it from that other lens. I like walking through, doing, I'm thinking of the word I'm blanking on, but role playing. I like role playing and going through, hey, here's the question. We'll sit and we'll do 20 minutes of an actual interview where you are treating me as if I'm the interviewer, and then I'm giving you real-time feedback on, hey, here's how we might want to address that next time, and here's how you may want to answer this. And it's been really successful. I really enjoy doing that. I really love working with professionals across the board, but I found it to be exceptionally fun with moms who are so wanting to, moms, we love to provide. Not that dads don't, but I think dads have a different role in the family. And moms, we have a particular role where we're trying to tap into a few different things. And so I love helping moms find what that next opportunity may look like. And even if it's something that doesn't look like what the rest of the resume looks like let's talk about that. Let's see what makes sense and what you're really excited about and how we might be able to fuel that passion.
Nice. Thank you for flying up here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah.